Okay, Frank Bonada here for LowKick MMA. With me today is Nikhil Sharma, and today we're breaking down UFC Fight Night, Dos Anjos versus Fiziev. How's it going, Nikhil?
It's going great, Frank. I'm so excited for the battle of the half ILs, if we may put it that way, this weekend. And it's going to be a great card. I just feel like there's so much excitement. It could turn out to be one of the most underrated cards, especially the main one, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a great main event. You got to love the sort of lightweight main events the UFC have given us lately. I think it's Rafael Dos Anjos versus Rafael Fiziev. So Rafael versus Rafael. I think I might be wrong on that. But yeah, amazing main event. You really have to credit the UFC for sort of turning away from the conventional throwing just two low ranked or top 15 ranked heavyweights against each other for this sort of like not low because they're still at the pinnacle of the sport, but I feel like there's just so much more technical emphasis on the fighters in the lower divisions. Like you saw in Gamrot versus Sayukian as well, which was just a sensational fight. We also had Kutaladze versus Ismagulov, not a main event recently, but on the main card, great fight. And this weekend we have a former lightweight champion taking on sort of a proper rising up and comer. What's your sort of initial read on this, Nikhil?
Well, first, I would like to bring up the point that Fiziev didn't think this fight was going to be made. They were initially scheduled to compete in mid-February, and they will finally square off now. I feel like this fight will tell us a great deal about where each man stands in the division at the moment. Fiziev thought that Arya would be like, okay, I want to move on. I don't want to be stuck at Fiziev and find another opponent. But Arya didn't do that, so we should give him props there. He could have done that. Dos Anjos did not want to wait around. Even when Fiziev was forced to pull out from the first fight due to COVID, as soon as he found out that Fiziev will be out, he waited a couple of weeks and got Moicano to step in. And we all know what happened there. He dominated Moicano. Like, he could have finished him. He wanted Moicano's corner to throw in the towel. But my point is, will the time off, will the injuries, will the lack of fights have an effect on Fiziev? He hasn't been in the cage for quite some time, and he has been dealing with injuries. Will he look the same? As good as Dos Anjos looked in the fight against Moicano, which, let's not forget, he was a short-term replacement, will he be able to replicate a similar performance against Fiziev? I don't think so. That's a very hard one. If you look at the common opponent between the two of them, Fiziev knocked out Moicano in the first round, but Arya went to a decision. The last time Arya finished someone was 2 years ago, and that was a submission. The last time Arya knocked out someone was 7 years ago. I don't see Arya presenting a finished challenge to Fiziev. What do you think about that, Frank?
Okay, yeah. So, but to counter that point, Rafael Fiziev has never competed in a 5-round fight, never gone full 5 rounds in an MMA match. Whereas RDA, I mean, his last 2 fights went the full 5 rounds, right? Moicano and Felder. Fiziev, I mean, we know he's an electric striker, some of the most exciting strikes in the division. But twice now, both in the Mark D. Casey fight and Bobby Green, I believe, both fights, once Fiziev enters that 3rd round, he started to really slow down and gas out. Obviously, his most recent fight against Brad Bradell was sensational, and he finished the fight in the 3rd round, maybe sort of indicating that he's been working on that cardio. But still, RDA's an attritive striker, I suppose you could say. He's someone who, like you say, maybe doesn't look for knockout strikes as much, but we saw the damage that he put on Renato Moicano in that last fight, to just landing relentless strikes, targeting different areas of the body, legs, stomach, or sort of midsection, head, as well as using elbow strikes that cause cuts. He just causes damage to his opponent rather than so much the one punch knockout power. So I kind of see it as Fiziev starting strong. He's got the power, he's got speed. I think speed could be a big thing as well, explosivity. But maybe that will start to wane in the later rounds. So obviously, RDA, 37 years old, we're not certain about how his chin is. So maybe he does get knocked out in those early rounds. But I do see it being, if it goes to the later rounds, I imagine we'll see RDA starting to pull away.
That's a very interesting observation there, because then what would happen is the rounds 2 and 4 are the decisive ones, right? It depends on who wins those rounds, if it is to go to the distance. If we assume that Arya is definitely going to be on top during the 5th round, or maybe even the 4th, right? Now let's look at Fiziev joining the UFC. He lost his debut in 86 seconds. But what most people don't realize is, look at who he lost to. The guy he lost to was Magomed Mustafayev, my apologies. And it was a knockout. So I don't see no shame in that. The guy has 14 wins, and out of those 14 wins, 10 were by knockout. So the guy definitely has some power. Anyone can get caught, anyone can get knocked out on any night. I just don't see the same danger in Arya. What Arya will likely do is 20% striking and then go for the takedown. Use his wrestling to his advantage. Keep Fiziev down. If he's going to be like Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira as an example, we know what happened there. I don't want to say that Arya will get knocked out, but this is, again, a classic veteran versus prospect battle. The cool thing about the veteran here is Arya still has a lot of gas in his tank. We can still see him coming out on top. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it all shakes out. I do see that Dos Anjos has a significant edge in experience, both in terms of the level of competition he's faced and 5-round fights, like you mentioned. While Fiziev is 8 years his junior, he is the superior athlete, and he has looked like someone who is destined for title contention.
Yeah. I suppose one interesting caveat of it all could be how Fiziev deals with the grappling that Dos Anjos possesses, because Dos Anjos is a really legitimate submission or just grappling fighter. He submitted Kevin Lee, of course, with the arm triangle, and yeah, he's definitely a threat in that sort of realm. And Fiziev doesn't have the MMA background, because he was a Muay Thai specialist before coach. So maybe he might not. Well, he definitely hasn't ever competed with someone in the UFC octagon with the sort of grappling prowess that RDA possesses. So, I mean, like you say, yeah, maybe his chin is gone. That is definitely a possibility, undeniably. But if RDA maybe survives round 1, and maybe he does start to take those later rounds, perhaps in round 2, he takes the fight to the floor, takes top control, just grinds out a round like that. I feel like you should back the younger fighter. You should back the faster, more athletic specimen. But the more I think about it, the more I'm backing Rafael dos Anjos, just on account of experience. I feel like he has more ways of winning.
That's definitely true.
Yeah, I think I'm going dos Anjos.
Dos Anjos, interesting. I do feel like Dos Anjos might be looking for a submission, because he's better at grappling. I don't think he's the kind of guy who will just take it on and keep it, right? He will put on some ground and pound onto you. And Fiziev, of course, won't like that. He won't want to be in that position. Fiziev has been training. I saw a clip on Twitter where he was training with other UFC fighters, working on his wrestling, some really notable ones. So again, I don't know if he can still get to the level of Dos Anjos' grappling. It all depends, man. That's why it's so shaky. I do feel like Fiziev will win if he connects a good one. But I don't see Dos Anjos winning the same way. I just don't. Dos Anjos, the only way I see him winning is through a decision, going the full distance.
Fair enough. It should be a good fight either way. Just have a quick look at the odds. Yeah, so we've got Fiziev a decent favorite at -210 on average, whilst RDA sits at +175. I mean, we've seen how close some of these lightweight fights, or just like lower weight class fights, have been lately, like Calvin Kattar and Josh Emmett, and obviously Sayukin and Gamrot. Both fights sort of went the opposite way many sort of saw them going initially, just because of how competitive they are. But yeah, great fight, and well, potential, you're getting close sort of title implications for the winner.
Exactly, that's the best part of it all. We will know where the division stands after this match.
100%. Let's have a look at the co-main event then. Caio Borralho versus Armen Petrosyan. This is one that I haven't tape studied as much, but I know you have, Nikhil. What's your read on this one?
Well, this is another interesting matchup. I do see UFC pushing their Contender Series guys out now. These are two of Dana White's Contender Series graduates who will look to add another win onto their resumes following a successful debut. They both debuted in the promotion after the series, and they both won. Now they won another win. Barrio came through to the UFC after getting 2 wins last fall on the series. Out of those 2 wins, one of them was a first-round finish in the second one. That was the second fight. He looked great against Omar Gadzhiev, which happened recently in April, I believe. And even though he was dogged a point for an illegal knee he threw in that fight, he still won comfortably on all judges' scorecards. You know, he did throw an illegal knee. It wasn't so bad. Omar Gadzhiev, props to him for continuing, and he was dogged a point. That makes a lot of difference. And he still won very comfortably. He wasn't split, it wasn't close, anything like that. So I do feel like he has a lot of potential. When we look at Petrosyan, the Armenian Superman, right? He's coming off a split decision win over Gregory Rodriguez or Robocop. So I would say that's a win. Even if it's a split decision, it has aged very well. We've seen what Robocop did to Julian Marquez. He killed him like right at the start. So it's a clash for the top middleweight of Dana White's Contender Series. Now, I can't confirm this for a fact, but I would imagine if I was either of these two fighters, whoever comes out on top will likely get a bigger promotional push from the UFC. They are the top middleweight dog that came through Dana White's Contender Series. So it's not just about getting another win. It's not just about proving that you're the better fighter, walking up the ranks. It's also about making sure your career is heading into a better direction. I will say that Petrosyan will likely be looking for the knockout here, but Barrio is more evenly split with his options. He can submit, he can decision, he can knock out, but I do feel like Petrosyan has a better chance of finishing Barrio here.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I don't have a massive read in this fight. Will add Baralho's first win. You discussed the second one, but his first win in the Contender Series was against Aaron Jeffrey, who he himself was a returning Contender Series fighter and recently made his Bellator debut, where he got a first round knockout. So, I mean, that's no scrub that he's got to win over either. He's proved that he can finish fights. He's proved he can go to decision, and the well-roundedness that he showed in the Omar Gadzhiev fight did impress me. So I'm leaning towards his side, but like I said, I don't have a major read in it.
Yeah, I wonder what the odds are there. And like I said, more so than the fight, I do feel like it's about the push that you get, becoming a star in the UFC, entering the middleweight division, being like, oh, we've seen what's happened to Sean O'Malley. Of course, O'Malley has a lot to do with his success. He's put in the work. Let's not discredit him. But at the same time, he was one of the first rising stars from Contender Series. I do feel like we're going to see a repeat of that pattern.
Yeah, I have the feeling that the UFC like Baralho for some reason. He's already got a decent following on social media, and he is the favorite right now, sitting at minus 190, whilst Petrosyan is a plus 160 underdog. Relatively close line, but Baralho the favorite. Let's take a look at the next fight on the main card. Saeed Nurmagomedov versus Douglas Silva de Andrade. Cracking fight this. Two fighters I'm a big fan of, actually. Douglas Silva, he had that incredible comeback win against Sergey Morozov. When was that? 4 months ago? Where he absolutely got pieced up in the first round, and then just completely turned it around, and was able to get that rear naked choke finish. I thought that was one of the most exciting sort of round and a halves of action we've had all year. And prior to that, a win over counter left hook KO over Perella. I can't remember that fight. Prior to that, and went decision with Roy Murphy, which is an impressive feat in itself. Saeed had that sort of, it's listed on Topology as a guillotine choke, but I remember people calling it maybe like a ninja choke variation against Cody Stamen. Stamen's a sort of veteran of the division now, a great fighter. Prior to that, a knockout win over Mark Striegel as well. Saeed, he has the Nurmagomedov name, but he doesn't really fight like a conventional Nurmagomedov. He kind of represents, you see in this sort of almost new breed of Dagestani fighter who they have a lot of the wrestling prowess that the likes of Habib was so successful with. But they have that skill in their back pocket, but they also have this like almost taekwondo style striking that the spinning back kicks and the sort of semi side on stance, in and out fighting. It's hasn't fully evolved yet to the point where like it's not become a new meta, I suppose you call it. But I mean, Saeed is at the forefront of that development. It's an excellent fight, and it's an excellent test to see how this new style of Dagestani fighter is going to be. I don't know if I have a side to pick, to be honest, even though Saeed is a massive minus 250 favorite. I don't know. How do you see it?
Well, let me start by this. Saeed is a massive favorite because he has the Nurmagomedov last name.
Yeah.
Again, it's a great bantamweight matchup here on the main card, like you mentioned, a cracker of a fight. Both fighters have finished each of their last two, so it's likely that this won't go the distance. Silva, like you mentioned, is coming off that comeback win. It was a close call for the Brazilian veteran in the fourth round, but he turned his fortunes and got a finish of his own. So when you look at the losses on his record, right, like you mentioned, Laurent Murphy, Piotr Yan, Rob Font, these are respectable names to have on your profile. I see no shame in losing to any of these guys. So I wouldn't draw too much of a conclusion there. Saeed has been the less active fighter of the two. When you look at his record, he is coming off a submission win over Stammen, like you mentioned, in January. That was his first outing in well over a year, and he didn't get to spend too much time in that. That's my problem. Yeah, you finished the guy. Yeah, you got to finish in 47 seconds. Cool. But you still, I don't know if that's all your ring rest, you know? You have been out of competition so long, and then I just don't feel like, even though it was a very good result for him, I just don't see that he's gone past the ring rest that may exist. 135-pound division is ultra competitive right now. What is it, like 6 world champions, 8 world champions that's in that division? Stacked. Amazing. It's tagged with talent and champions. For them to get a spot in the rankings, they'll have to do it convincingly. I don't feel like they can just go out there, make a comeback, or go out there, decision, and win that like that. They'll have to do it very convincingly. Go and knock somebody out. Silva, I feel like, is more aggressive when you compare him to Saeed, who, yeah, like many of the Dagestani fighters, is more technically measured, and he has that approach. Even though he's more of an outlier when you look at only Dagestani fighters, I will still say that he's more technical when compared to Silva. Each of them will likely be looking to get a level up in competition, and I will say Saeed is more motivated. He is newer to the game. A dominant performance from the winner will likely get them a third fight. I do feel like that. If either of them does it convincingly, they might find themselves right at the door, knocking on the rankings, and then maybe they get a third fight with a top 15 ranked guy ahead. So that would be fun. I do feel like there'll be a stoppage here. Although Saeed is more likely to get a decision, I just don't see Silva presenting him that much of a challenge. You know, I feel like, okay, so when you look at Silva's record, right, he has 20 knockouts out of 28 fights. Sounds crazy, like, oh my God, how not? But when you look at his actual UFC record, he has 2 knockouts in 10 fights. So that knockout thing is, anyone who tells you that, they're lying to you. They haven't done their research. I do feel like Saeed he'll probably dominate and win his way. If not dominate, it'll be pretty handy. I don't see Silva presenting much of a challenge.
Okay, interesting. Like I said, I haven't got a side that I'm picking, but I feel like despite him being 37 years old, Douglas Da Silva, I give him like the athletic advantage. I feel like he's just like an athletic specimen who just is dangerous. Obviously, Saeed has this probably the more well-rounded skill set, maybe more opportunities to finish the fight. But I don't know, there's power in Da Silva's hand, despite what you said about his limited amount of KOs. Remember the Morozov fight? Before he choked him, he really like tore him apart on the feet. So there is power there with Da Silva still. I would probably lead towards Saeed Nurmagomedov's side, but I do think there's, Da Silva will be live for a KO.
Yeah.
Let's look at the next fight on the main event. Okay, heavyweight fight between Jared Vanderer and Chase Sherman. This fight sort of came out of nowhere. It was just suddenly announced last week, I think. I don't know if it's short because neither were meant to be on this card before. It's sort of short notice, I suppose.
They are heavyweights.
They are heavyweights, correct? Yeah, both men. If you put their past 8 fights combined, there's only 1 win in the mix. So it is a sort of loser goes home, winner stays on. Yeah, I feel like he's saying this today, but don't have a huge read. I like Jared Vanderer. I've interviewed him many times, and he's a delightful human being. He's taken quite a few sort of short notice fights and had some like tough veteran matchups, like Romanov. Romanov's not a veteran, but he's a very tough matchup. Then the veteran matchups in his last 2 fights, Andrei Arlovski, which is a split decision loss, and of course Alexei Olenek, whom Vanderer did have some success against in the sort of grappling department, considering Olenek's grappling submission pedigree is very respectful. Of course, he did get submitted at the end, but yeah, I think I would back Vanderer in all honesty. Chase Sherman did get cut from the UFC, I believe, and then stepped in on short notice to fight Alexander Romanov after he was cut, and the UFC awarded him with a new contract. So yeah, I think Vanderer is probably a slightly higher level fighter, and I do think he has a bit more to give to the UFC. So I'm going to take the Vanderer side.
Yeah, very fair analysis there. Like, this is an interesting clash between 2 struggling heavyweights. I feel like it has the potential to be one of the most exciting fights of the night. Vanderer is, of course, a member of the Dana White's Contender Series class of 2020. He's managed just a single win in his first 5 outings in the UFC, and he will go into this fight after dropping 3 in a row. Vanderer did show some positive signs in his loss to Arlovski, like you mentioned, but he needs to capitalize on the opportunities to get another win this weekend. He has shown that potential, but he hasn't really capped it off as well as he should have. So when you look at Chase Sherman, on the other hand, right, he's coming off a loss to Romanov in April, and you're right, he is filling in on short notice for Tanner Boser. He got called back for the bout after being released. I believe he lost to Jake Collier in January. After that, he was cut from the promotion.
Correct.
And I do feel like they were looking for someone to step in, and he was probably the guy who said, oh yeah, fuck it, I'll do it. So he's going into the fight on a 4-fight losing streak with 3 wins to 9 losses on the big stage overall. They haven't been enjoying the best of runs lately, and both guys have a lot of proof here. They both desperately need a win here. And it might be loser goes home, but it might also be both men go home. It depends on how they go in. You know, out of Sherman's 15 wins, 14 of them have been knockouts. So yeah, when Vanderer looked good, he might put Sherman in some kind of danger. I just don't know if he can capitalize on that. I do feel like Sherman, on the other hand, though, he might knock Vanderer out. When you look at what's at stake here, these 2 are bound to go out there guns blazing and really make a statement on Saturday night. In short, it should be a very exciting fight. And I'll forgive your bias towards Vanderer because you've interviewed him so many times, but I'd back Chase on this one.
Fair enough. I will add, even though if you look at Vanderer's last couple of fights, there is 2 KOs in that mix. Both of them are from ground and pound situations. They're more TKOs, both of Romanov and Sergey Spivak. So he is a relatively durable fighter. And I will say his win in the UFC, the unanimous decision over Justin Tafa, is a better win than Sherman's win over Ike Villanueva. And yeah, no disrespect to Ike, but he probably should have been in a lower weight class. Whereas Justin Tafa, natural heavyweight with natural, actual knockout power, Vanderer was able to just slug it out there and go the full 3 rounds. I think Chase Sherman isn't as durable as Justin Tafa. So I feel like Sherman won't be able to hold out. I feel like Jared Vanderer is going to win. He's going to win inside the distance. But I say that with a lot of confidence. It's more confidence I actually have in it. But that's the side that I lean to, I suppose.
Yeah, and one thing that we know for sure is it's going to be a very fun fight because they have something to prove it.
Yeah, that's true. Michael Johnson versus Jamie Malarkey next, I believe.
Yep, alive with the veterans there.
Absolute banger. Yeah, this is a great fight. Michael Johnson looked the best he has in years in his last fight against Alan Patrick. Just defended the takedowns and set up that beautiful counter left and finished the fight. Yeah, looked absolutely incredible. Jamie Malarkey, been on, well, I say a bit of a tear. He's coming off the loss to Jaden Turner. Is that right? I can't even remember that fight.
Yeah.
But the Devontae Smith KO was so dramatic. Yeah, fun fight. I can't even remember. How did the Jaden Turner knockout go right now? Remind me.
Jalen Turner, I believe it was just a straight punch.
Yeah, 2 ground strikes. So yeah, I was gonna say I felt like Malarkey had like a durability edge on Johnson, with Johnson being the older fighter. But maybe not. If Turner did just like finish him, maybe the durability is similar because Johnson packs a lot of power, as shown in the Patrick fight. So I think you've probably got a edge towards Jamie Malarkey, just the youth. He's 27, Johnson's 36. You have to, and also the fact that prior to the win over Alan Patrick, Johnson was on quite a substantial losing streak. Should be a barn burner either way. Both men love to strike. I don't imagine we'll have too many wrestling exchanges. And I fully expect to see a KO. Like I said, lean to the Malarkey side, but it just as easily could be Michael Johnson.
Yeah, Johnson, I feel like he really needed that win against Patrick because before that he had dropped 4 in a row. Now, not only Johnson, us as fans, as members of the media, we needed him to win that one because that makes this fight more interesting than it would have been, right? If he hadn't won that, it's like, okay, we know who's winning this, but that win makes it more interesting. We do tend to get nostalgic with Johnson's abilities, what he has shown in the past. Is he the same Johnson, though? That's the question here. He's gone 1-4 in his last 5 outings. It's very hard to tell with Johnson. It's frustrating to be his fan, One moment he's looking so great, but then he ends up with a loss. And you're like, wait, what just happened there? He's faced top competition over the years, so the experience is definitely there. We have seen how experience can help someone, a veteran or a newer fighter who may not have been in that position. The quickest example I can think of the top of my head, Ngannou. Gan did not know where he was at. When he was being down, he's like, okay, I've never been in this situation before. Ngannou had been in that situation before in his first Stipe fight. He knew exactly how to use that experience. Now, like you mentioned, Malarkey is reeling off a loss to Jalen Turner. He had won 2 bouts before that, one over Devontae Smith, the TKO, and then he also knocked out Kama Worthy. A loss to Turner, I would say, isn't the worst thing on your resume, man. Like, even if it's a finish, it's not the worst thing. Like, we all saw what he did to Brad Riddle this past weekend. So Turner is now on a 5-fight win streak that saw him finish every single one of his opponents. No shame in that one, if you're one of those five. So when you look at Malarkey, right, his last 3 outings have all been knockout or knockout. He lost 1 and he won 2. I do feel like he'd feel confident in going out there and trying to get a finish. I can't, in all honesty, say that Johnson is at the same level of Turner in terms of power. So he won't really be that scared with Johnson or hesitant with Johnson that, oh, he has that power, even though he is powerful, not to discredit him. But when you compare him to Turner, not the same level. Johnson can make mistakes during the fight. He looked sharp and focused in his last one. We saw a very composed, very sharp Johnson that we had seen. But can he be the same Johnson? That's a question that keeps coming back to my head. Like, yeah, he looked great. Yeah, we're going off of one performance. He has shown a pattern of looking amazing and then fucking it all up. So Malarkey, one can argue, has more momentum since he won 2 of his last 3. And his only sole defeat was to Turner, a very, very well-known rising prospect. If they are looking to make their mark in this division, they'll need to put on a show and try to get a win inside the distance.
Yeah, I feel like it's fair to assume that that's probably going to happen either way, in all honesty. Yeah, I'll take the Malarkey side just based on youth alone. But good fight. Let's have a quick look at the odds. Okay, Malarkey, a -240 favorite. So pretty big favorite there. Johnson sits at +200. I mean, if you're going to bet Michael Johnson, bet his KO line. I feel like that's probably the best way to do it. yeah, fun main card. Cynthia Calvillo versus Nina Nunes is also on there, but I mean, yeah, it's I haven't got a huge read on that. Is there anything you want to say about that fight?
Yeah. So, okay, if you're a betting man, don't bet on this fight. That's what I'll say. This is the wild card of this whole event. There's no fucking telling what's going to happen here. Just, I don't know. It's again a clash of veteran competitors who are looking to get things moving. They haven't really enjoyed the best of forms. They need to get a win. Calvillo, she debuted in the flyweight division with a main event, and she won over Jessica. Now, but after that, it has been all. So she wasn't able to carry that momentum and go forward in that. She lost to Caroline Chukagian, Jessica Andrade. Jessica Andrade, by the way, she's been looking great. But yeah, I don't know. It's like her corner two in the towel. When you look at Nunes, I feel like the cool thing about her is that she might get her first win just some time before her wife, Amanda Nunes, attempts to get the belts back. But again, if there's one thing that I'll say is, don't think that you know how to call this fight out. Anyone who's like, okay, this guy's going to win, I'm going to bet on that, you have no idea what's going to happen. And I wonder what the odds are for
that. Pretty close. Minus 150 for Calvillo, favorite, and then a plus 125 underdog for Nunes. Yeah, pretty close. But I would not take either side, to be honest. Because it's not even like both women are going to decisions every time. Like Calvillo is coming off two technically KO losses. Obviously, there was the KO loss to Andrade, but Andrea Lee, I think Calvillo broke her hand against against Andrea Lee. It was something like that, but she was getting pieced up before that in a way. So yeah, don't have a side, and yeah, just don't bet on it.
Yeah, another great matchup on the prelims is Antonina Shevchenko versus Courtney Casey. Another clash of veteran flyweights who are looking to confirm where they stand in the divisional rankings, much like the main event. The elder Shevchenko sister has not found the same success as Valentina Shevchenko. She has struggled, and she'll be entering this fight on a 3-4 record, 3 wins to 4 losses. Now, one thing that I will say is that she has only lost to ranked opponents, which is not the worst thing in the world. But when you're 37 years old, you got to reconsider, right? You got to consider what you're doing ahead. I don't know if she's going to call an end to her career. I wouldn't be surprised if she hung up the gloves, especially if she lost. But even if she won, when you look at Casey, her record might not reflect the full story. A lot of her losses that you see have been split decisions that could have gone either way. I do feel like Casey might have won a few of those fights. And even if she lost, it wasn't like she lost convincingly or she got dominated throughout, anything like that. I do feel like she'll present a challenge to Shevchenko, who, again, I just feel like when you're Antonina Shevchenko, you go to Valentina, be like, okay, how do I head kick her? And then you learn something along those lines, and that happens. But all jokes aside, I do feel like it'll be a very interesting clash that should just provide some clarity to both women. Like, hey, this is where you stand in the hierarchy. This is where you are at the food chain. And I feel like if both of them really need a dominating win, another great finish. So when you look at the whole card, not just the main card, the whole event on the night, you look at what's at stake here. This is another one of those fights. A lot is at stake here. These two women need to go out there and put in a convincing performance. For the person who loses, yeah, it's not only loser goes home, it's move on, maybe business or something like that. I think that's what's likely going to happen.
Well, I mean, I feel like Antonina Shevchenko is going to be allowed to stay fighting in the UFC as long as her sister does. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I was just looking at Antonina's record then, and yeah, there's a sort of like narrative that women's MMA fights typically go to decision all the time. But her past 5 fights, only one of her fights has gone to decision. That being the decision loss to Chukagian. Chukagian does go to decision with everyone. But apart from that, she's got a knockout, she's got a submission, and then a knockout and a submission loss as well. So yeah, she's got ways to win, and she has that pedigree in that camp. Antonina's being, whereas Courtney Casey, yeah, I just haven't been overly impressed with her, in all honesty. I feel like she's okay, but probably like good enough to compete with like a lot of the women just outside that top 15. Whereas I feel like Antonina is like competitive with like the top 5 of the top 15. So I feel like there's just like a slight skill disparity between the two women. So I lean to the Antonina Shevchenko side.
Yeah, I would agree with that analysis as well.
Cool.
But even then, I wonder if both will continue or if at least one will hang up the gloves.
Who knows? Yeah, I suppose neither. What, Antonina, 37 years old, Casey is 35. Both, yeah, definitely in the twilight of their career.
Yeah, and another great matchup, which is a middleweight bout on the prelims, is Cody Brandeis versus Trey Fongo. Now, they both are coming in from different directions this Saturday. You know, Cody Brandeis has won his first UFC victory, and he'll be looking to add another one to his record, while Trey Fongo is rebounding from a loss. So I wonder who'll be more motivated. The guy wants another win, and this guy has just lost. So he will be going in and be like, okay, you know what? If I want to stay here, I need to win. Otherwise, they'll cut you off. Brandeis on really good. Like, I feel like he became a fan favorite for those people who watched this fight, because he did step in for a really hard-fought, short-notice fight against Nick Maximov, who just had his first loss against Andrei Petrosky. So he did go on to get a post-round submission after that loss. And that was against Dalcha Lungi Ambula. I hope I didn't butcher his name, but
I think you got that right, yeah.
The former, again, another one of the Contender Series contestant, right? He did on a finish in 6 of his 7 career victories. So I feel like he might go in and feel confident in doing that again. You know, after they advanced to the middleweight finals on the season 29 of The Ultimate Fighter, there was a knee injury that Gore suffered, and that's why his debut was delayed. Now, he was supposed to meet Brian Battle, but he got out hustled, right? He did go in there, but Battle landed, I believe it was like twice as many strikes or something like crazy like that. So yeah, it's hard. When you look at Battle, he's a hard contestant as well. And when you look at the opponent, Brandeis, he has shown some grit, some determination. He is tough in his first 2 fights, but I wonder if that's a compliment, you know, being tough. Maybe that just means you get hit too much sometimes. So there is a lot of raw material here to work with for the UFC. You know, both guys seem pretty raw to me. It depends on how they want to develop the talent, and it depends on who comes out on top, because that's a talent that will be developed. Again, that's what I love about this weekend. Like I said, this could be a criminally underrated card because there's so much at stake here. They need to, again, send a statement, make a statement, send a message, let everyone know I'm in this game for real. Another high-stakes fight, which should go to a finish, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went to a decision.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. And kind of like you said about Brundage, yeah, I mean, that win over Dalcia Lungiambula, he got absolutely lit up at the start of that fight, and then sort of was able to capitalize on his opponents over exertion, I suppose you call it, locking in that sort of guillotine submission. Yeah, whereas Trey Sangor, I mean, he's 3-1. He's probably too early on in his career to be in the UFC. 3-1 record, you shouldn't be competing in the UFC because you just are not experienced enough. Brundage is 7-2, so it's not a huge amount of sort of experience he can draw from, but still more. He's been in more sort of situations that you find yourself in, you know, like different to the training room, you know, the unique environment that the UFC Octagon is. And that Gore's fight with Brian Battle, I just thought was a really poor performance from Gore, just sort of relying on his physical attributes over skill, technique, setting up his shots. It was just a lot of like just trying to land the big right hand. And ultimately that's what led to his downfall, because like you say, Brian Battle was twice as active as him, But even all he had to do was land a jab straight, and he's going to be twice as active because Gore was only landing the rear straight or rear overhand. I do lean towards the Brandeis side, just this time based on experience, like octagon experience. He's been in there with a lot of fighters. I mean, yeah, you could say, okay, he's got a contender series loss to, a KO loss in the contender series, but that was against William Knight, who was just a freak of nature. Oh, to be fair, so is, Gore's extremely athletic, maybe not as athletic as William Knight is, but I like Brandeis' chances of surviving the powerful shots thrown by Gore, maybe like wrapping him up, like grounding him out against the cage, wearing down that energy. Just when you are just throwing those massive punches, you do burn so much energy so quickly. And if you've got a sort of wrestling based fighter, which I think Brandeis will take that sort of approach, I think he can start to grind Gore out and maybe start looking for an opportunistic submission or sort of an attritive late KO.
Yeah. Like the great thing, coming to wrap it all up, is out of the 8 fights we just discussed, Frank, at least 6 of them should end by a finish. At least 6, if not all 8. When you look at it, what's at stake is like every single fight there was something so high level at stake here. Otherwise, Uncle Dana is not going to be happy. And I wouldn't be surprised if even the winner gets cut out of some of these fights here.
Yeah, it's a sort of a hodgepodge of there's veteran versus prospect fights. You've got guys who are, fighting for their contract. There's guys who are fighting for a potential shot at the title. It's a real sort of mixture, which is nice. Maybe the names don't scream out as much as obviously last weekend or even the weekend coming, UFC Long Island. But the matchups are good. They're well-made matchups. And I mean, just a couple of names that we didn't mention. David Onama is back on the card. He was meant to fight Austin Lingo. Lingo fell out. They've managed to find Garrett Armfield, who's stepping in on short notice. I'm not familiar with him, but I mean, this is his chance to make a big name. David Onama is a very, very good fighter, I think, who could have a big future with the UFC. Carl Roberson versus Kennedy and Jekwazu. That's just a fun fight. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a knockout. Ronnie Lawrence versus Takramonov. That's a fun sort of curtain raiser fight. And Ricky Tercios, also from the Ultimate Fighter, is in the mix as well. So yeah, it's a fun card. It should be a fun one to watch. And then, I mean, to be honest, July is just a month stacked with UFC events, because we've got UFC Long Island with Rodriguez versus Ortega, we've got UFC London, and then we've got UFC 277 now, I think it is, Nunes versus Pena versus Nunes, I guess now. Good, should be good fun. Looking forward to watching it.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of the events that's not necessarily for fans in terms of celebrity, but this is an event for the UFC. Yeah. This is an event they're doing to clear things out. This is a housekeeping event, if you want to put it that way, It's like, okay, we've got too much going on. Okay, let's decide. You match up. We're going to let one of you go. And if you don't do it convincingly, we're going to let both of you go. So if you're a fight fan, tune in.
Yeah, exactly. It's setting a lot of stuff up for the future, sort of thing. A lot of these guys' next fights will be very important ones, but right now this is the sort of the setup, the build-up. So yeah, definitely tune in. We definitely will be. I think we'll call it a day there. Not sure how long this podcast's been, but it's been quite a long one. It's a pleasure having you on, Nikhil. Thank you for your insight. Defo sort of showed me up a few times today. But yeah, it was a good one. Go follow Nikhil on his socials. I think it's Nikhil Sharma MMA on Twitter. Subscribe to LowKick MMA. Follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, all those socials, and enjoy the fights.
Yeah.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.